November 11, 1918, 11:00 a.m. Campigny Forest, France. Inside a cold railway carriage, pens scratch across paper. Outside, the guns fall silent for the first time in 4 years. For the world, it is the end of the Great War. For Germany, it is the beginning of a slow, unseen collapse. You can almost feel the weight in the air. German officers stand rigid, faces pale, knowing they are signing more than an armistice. They are signing humiliation. Back home, church bells ring, but not in celebration. They toll in confusion. Germany had not been invaded. No enemy boots marched through Berlin. And yet suddenly the war was lost. The Kaiser fled. The empire dissolved overnight. Soldiers returned to cities that felt unfamiliar, carrying defeat like a sickness they couldn't name. Then came the treaty. June 28, 1919, Versailles Palace. In the same hall where Germany had once proclaimed its empire, the victors now forced it to accept blame for the entire war. The Treaty of Versailles stripped Germany of land, colonies, military power, and dignity. The army was reduced to 100,000 men. Tanks were banned, aircraft forbidden, the navy shattered, and layered on top of it all, crushing reparations that would bleed the nation dry for decades. For ordinary Germans, the treaty wasn't ink on paper. It was empty shelves, closed factories, men standing in bread lines where pride once lived. By 1923, money itself became meaningless. You could buy a loaf of bread in the morning for 250 marks. By afternoon, it cost 200 million. Families carried banknotes in baskets. Children played with stacks of cash like toys. Life savings evaporated in weeks. Pensioners starved. Workers were paid twice a day, running to markets before prices rose again. Democracy was supposed to save Germany. Instead, it looked weak, fragile, laughable. The Weimar Republic argued while the nation burned. Coalition governments collapsed one after another. Street battles erupted between communists and nationalists. Assassinations became routine. Many Germans stopped believing in votes, laws, and compromise. They wanted order, strength, someone who could make the chaos stop. In the beer halls of Munich, one man watched all of this closely. Adolf Hitler, a failed artist, a decorated but embittered war veteran, a man who believed Germany had not lost the war, but had been betrayed from within. He learned quickly how to speak to pain. Hitler didn't talk like politicians. He shouted, he accused, he promised. His speeches were not lectures, they were performances. He gave Germans something simple to hold onto, someone to blame: Jews, Marxists, liberals, foreign powers, internal enemies who he claimed had stabbed the nation in the back. And people listened. By the early 1920s, Hitler transformed rage into ritual, torchlit rallies, flags, music, symbols designed to replace despair with belonging. The Nazi Party offered more than politics, it offered identity, to men who felt useless, to veterans who felt discarded, to citizens who felt forgotten. In 1923, Hitler tried to seize power by force. The beer hall putsch failed spectacularly. Shots fired, Nazis killed, Hitler arrested, sentenced to prison. It should have been the end. Instead, it became his rebirth. In a comfortable cell, Hitler wrote Mein Kampf, part manifesto, part obsession, part prophecy. He didn't abandon his dream, he refined it. If power couldn't be taken by violence, it would be taken legally, from within the system itself. Then history intervened again. 1929, the Wall Street crash. What began in New York rippled across the Atlantic like a shockwave. American loans vanished overnight. German banks collapsed. Factories closed by the thousands. Unemployment exploded. 6 million men without work. Families froze through winters with no coal. Children fainted in classrooms from hunger. You can almost hear it, the silence of idle machines, the anger of fathers with nothing to bring home. This time, desperation was absolute. And Hitler was ready. The Nazis promised jobs, bread, national pride, revenge against Versailles. They used fear like a weapon, warning that communists would destroy Germany or that Jews were poisoning it from within. Every crisis became proof that democracy had failed. In election after election, the Nazi vote surged. Not because all Germans were extremists, but because enough of them were afraid. By 1932, Hitler was no longer shouting from the shadows. He was standing at the gates of power, surrounded by elites who believed they could control him, use him, tame him. They were wrong. January 30th, 1933, Berlin. Adolf Hitler is appointed Chancellor of Germany. Crowds gather with torches as night falls. Flames flicker against stone buildings. Songs echo through the streets. It feels to many like a rebirth. But beneath the cheers, something darker is taking shape. Because Hitler does not see power as a responsibility. He sees it as a weapon. And Germany, already wounded, is about to hand it to him willingly. February 27, 1933, Berlin. Smoke claws into the night sky. Flames tear through the Reichstag, the heart of German democracy. Sirens wail, crowds gather. And within hours, Adolf Hitler steps before the nation, his voice sharp, urgent, unyielding. Germany is under attack, he says, not from foreign armies, but from enemies within. You can almost feel how fast the moment moves. No investigation, no debate, just fear, raw and immediate. Hitler blames the communists. Whether the fire was set by one man or many barely matters. What matters is how perfectly it serves his purpose. By morning, civil liberties are gone. The Reichstag fire decree suspends freedom of speech, press, assembly, and privacy. Police can arrest without warrants. Homes can be searched at will. Newspapers shut down overnight. Communists vanish into newly opened detention centers, places not yet called concentration camps but already filled with terror. Order Hitler promises, security, stability. Many Germans welcome it. After years of chaos, the streets feel quieter. Marching boots replace street brawls. Flags replace uncertainty. The illusion of control settles over the nation like a heavy blanket. Weeks later, under intimidation and violence, the Reichstag passes the Enabling Act. It hands Hitler the power to rule by decree. No parliament, no president, no constitution that can stop him. Democracy dies, not with a coup but with applause. From this moment on, Germany no longer belongs to its people. It belongs to the state, and the state belongs to Hitler. The dismantling is methodical. Opposition parties are banned one by one. Trade unions are dissolved. Their leaders arrested. Independent judges are replaced. Civil servants are forced to swear loyalty not to Germany, but to Hitler himself. You can almost hear doors closing. Teachers are purged, artists silenced, writers flee or burn their own books to survive. On university campuses, students gather around bonfires, tossing forbidden ideas into the flames. Philosophy, science, truth. The message is unmistakable. Think as we think or disappear. Fear becomes normalized. The Gestapo, Hitler's secret police, thrives not on numbers but on neighbors. Ordinary citizens inform on each other. A careless joke, a whispered complaint, a wrong look. Suddenly someone is gone, no trial, no explanation. People learn to lower their voices, then stop speaking altogether. Meanwhile, Hitler builds devotion with surgical precision. Massive rallies in Nuremberg choreograph loyalty on an industrial scale. Thousands of voices become one. Banners stretch to the horizon. Searchlights carve symbols into the sky. Germany is no longer a nation. It is a spectacle. Children are not spared. The Hitler Youth transforms classrooms into training grounds. Boys learn to march, obey, and fight. Girls are taught motherhood and sacrifice. Loyalty to family is replaced with loyalty to Führer. Questioning is weakness. Compassion is dangerous. By the mid-1930s, the transformation feels complete. The economy improves not by miracle but by militarization. Autobahns are built. Factories roar back to life producing weapons. Unemployment falls. Many Germans credit Hitler personally. They see food on the table again. Dignity restored. What they don't see, or choose not to, is the cost. Behind the order is brutality. In 1935, the Nuremberg laws stripped Jews of citizenship. Marriages are banned, rights erased. Jewish doctors, lawyers, and teachers are pushed out of public life. Businesses are marked. Lives are narrowed day by day. And still, much of Germany looks away. Then comes Kristallnacht. November 9, 1938. Glass shatters across German cities. Synagogues burn. Jewish homes are looted. Men are dragged into the streets and beaten. Over 30,000 are arrested in a single night and sent to camps like Dachau and Buchenwald. The state calls it spontaneous. It is anything but. This is no longer discrimination. It is rehearsal. At the same time, Hitler turns outward. Versailles had forbidden Germany from rearming. Hitler defies it openly. The army grows. Tanks roll again. The Luftwaffe fills the skies. When German troops march into the demilitarized Rhineland in 1936, they are under orders to retreat if France responds. France does nothing. Britain protests but does nothing. The gamble works. Each success reinforces Hitler's belief that the world is weak and that Germany's destiny lies in expansion. Austria is absorbed without a fight. Czechoslovakia is carved apart while Western leaders hope appeasement will satisfy him. It never does. By the end of the 1930s, Germany stands unified, armed, and intoxicated with belief. Hitler is no longer just a leader. He is fate itself, at least in the minds of those who follow him. But beneath the parades and promises, the machinery of destruction is already turning. Because the order Hitler created was never meant to preserve Germany. It was meant to consume it. And the next step, war, will reveal just how far the nation has fallen. September 1, 1939, 4:45 a.m. Westerplatte, Poland. A German battleship opens fire. The first shells slam into Polish defenses as dawn breaks over the Baltic coast. Within minutes, dive bombers scream overhead. Tanks roll forward. Infantry advance in tight formation. Europe wakes up to war. You can almost feel the speed of it. This is not the slow grind of trenches from the last war. This is blitzkrieg, lightning war. Radios crackle with orders. Armored columns punch through weak points. The Polish army is overwhelmed in weeks. For many Germans, it feels like vindication. Versailles is avenged. The army is strong again. Victory comes fast. When Britain and France declare war, it sounds distant, abstract. The real fighting, it seems, is already over. It is. In the West, months of uneasy silence follow. Then, in May 1940, Germany strikes again. The Netherlands fall. Belgium collapses. France, once Europe's greatest military power, crumbles in 6 weeks. German troops march into Paris beneath the Arc de Triomphe. The world is stunned. At home, Hitler's popularity reaches its peak. Church bells ring. Newspapers hail him as a military genius. Even skeptics fall silent, who can argue with victory. But war has a way of demanding more. Hitler's vision is not limited to borders or treaties. It is ideological, racial. He believes Germany must expand eastward, Lebensraum, living space, for the Aryan future. And in that future, there is no room for entire peoples. On June 22, 1941, Germany invades the Soviet Union. Operation Barbarossa is the largest military assault in human history. 3 million German soldiers cross the border. At first, success is overwhelming. Soviet armies are encircled. Cities fall. Millions of prisoners are taken. But this is not a conventional campaign. Behind the front lines move the Einsatzgruppen, mobile killing units. Their orders are clear: Jews, political officers, intellectuals, eliminate them. Mass graves fill forests and ravines. Bullets replace laws, murder becomes routine. You can almost hear the gunshots echo into silence. As the invasion pushes deeper, reality begins to bite back. Distances stretch, supply lines thin, equipment breaks down. Winter arrives early and brutal. Soldiers freeze in summer uniforms. Weapons jam. Morale fractures. By December 1941, German forces reach the outskirts of Moscow and stop. The war that was supposed to end in weeks drags into months, then years. At the same time, Hitler declares war on the United States after Japan attacks Pearl Harbor. What was once a European conflict becomes global. Germany now faces enemies with immense industrial power and manpower. Still, Hitler refuses compromise. In 1942, he orders a push south toward the oil fields of the Caucasus. The city of Stalingrad becomes the focal point, not for strategy but for symbolism. It bears Stalin's name. Hitler wants it taken at any cost. Street by street, room by room, the fighting turns primal. By winter, the German Sixth Army is surrounded. Supplies fail. Hunger sets in. Frostbite kills as surely as bullets. Soldiers write final letters home, knowing relief will not come. Hitler forbids retreat. In February 1943, Stalingrad falls. 90,000 German soldiers surrender. An entire army is destroyed. This time, the bells do not ring. For the first time, doubt seeps through the Reich. Casualty lists grow longer. Bombs begin falling on German cities. Hamburg burns. Berlin shakes. Families huddle in shelters as the war comes home. The illusion of invincibility is gone. Yet Hitler tightens his grip. Teenagers and old men are drafted. Dissent is treason. Failure is betrayal. Generals are dismissed or executed. Reality itself becomes the enemy. And still, the regime escalates its crimes. By 1944, the machinery of genocide is fully operational. Auschwitz, Treblinka, Sobibor, industrial death. Millions murdered not in chaos, but with precision. Trains run on time. Paperwork is filed. A state commits mass murder while insisting it is necessary. Germany is no longer just losing a war. It is losing its soul. As Allied forces land in Normandy and Soviet armies surge westward, the Reich begins to collapse from both ends. Cities fall. Resources vanish. Hope erodes. But inside his bunker, Hitler refuses to see it. Because admitting defeat would mean admitting the lie. And that is something he will never do. April 16, 1945, Seelow Heights east of Berlin. The night erupts in light. Thousands of Soviet artillery guns fire at once, turning the horizon into a wall of flame. The ground shakes, trees splinter. German positions vanish under the barrage. This is the last stand. You can almost feel the exhaustion in the air. The soldiers defending Berlin are no longer the hardened professionals of earlier years. Many are boys, Hitler youth with oversized rifles. Others are old men, pulled from factories and hospitals. They dig trenches with bare hands, knowing the Red Army is coming, and there will be no mercy. Berlin is encircled. Inside the city, civilians crowd into basements and subway tunnels. Water is scarce. Food is gone. The smell of smoke and decay hangs everywhere. Above ground, buildings crumble block by block. Snipers haunt shattered streets. Tanks fire at point-blank range. And beneath it all, deep under the Reich Chancellery, Adolf Hitler waits. The Führerbunker is a concrete tomb. Maps cover the walls, marked with units that no longer exist. Orders are issued to phantom armies. Generals nod in silence, knowing the truth but unable or unwilling to speak it. Reality has lost its meaning here. Hitler's health is visibly failing. His hands shake. His voice cracks between rage and despair. He lashes out at commanders, accusing them of betrayal. He still believes loyalty can reverse physics, manpower, and time itself. Above him, Berlin dies. On April 20th, Hitler's birthday, Soviet shells land within the city center. There is no parade, no celebration, only distant explosions. It is the last time he emerges to greet anyone, handing out medals to child soldiers, faces pale beneath oversized helmets. The symbolism is unbearable. As Allied forces close in from the west and east, the truth becomes unavoidable. The Reich is finished. On April 29th, Hitler marries Eva Braun in the bunker. A brief ceremony. A final attempt at normalcy in a world reduced to rubble. Hours later, he dictates his last will and testament, blaming the Jews for the war and absolving himself of all guilt. There is no regret, no apology, only obsession to the end. The next afternoon, April 30th, 1945, Adolf Hitler commits suicide. His body is carried up a stairwell, doused in gasoline, and burned in the Chancellery Garden as Soviet artillery pounds the area. The man who promised a 1,000-year Reich leaves behind ashes and silence. But the suffering does not end with him. In the days that follow, Berlin falls. German forces surrender across Europe. Camps are liberated, revealing horrors the world struggles to comprehend. Skeletal survivors stare back at their liberators with hollow eyes. Mass graves stretch beyond the tree line. The scale of the crime becomes undeniable. Germany lies in ruins, cities flattened, millions dead, families displaced. The nation that sought glory is reduced to survival. And then comes the reckoning. Nazi leaders are hunted, captured, and put on trial at Nuremberg. The evidence is overwhelming. Films, documents, testimonies. The world listens as Germany's crimes are laid bare, one atrocity at a time. Some defendants claim ignorance, others obedience. None can escape responsibility. Germany is divided, occupied, rebuilt under watchful eyes. Symbols are torn down, flags are banned. The name Hitler becomes synonymous with evil itself. But the deeper question remains. How did it happen? How did one man rise from obscurity and drag an entire nation with him into destruction? The answer is not just in ideology or madness. It is in fear, in silence, in the slow erosion of truth, in the moments when people chose comfort over courage, obedience over resistance. Germany fell long before the bombs. It fell when lies were easier than reality. And that lesson, written in blood and ruins, outlives the war itself. May 8, 1945, Berlin. The guns fall silent, not with triumph but with exhaustion. Smoke drifts over a city that barely resembles a capital anymore. Walls stand without roofs, streets without names, lives without futures. Germany has not just lost a war. It has lost its illusions. You can almost feel the emptiness. Survivors wander through rubble, searching for family members who will never return. Soldiers stumble home to neighborhoods erased from memory. Mothers scan lists of the dead. Children grow up overnight. The Allies divide the country into zones of occupation. The once proud Reich is now administered, watched, corrected. Symbols of Nazism are torn down, statues smashed, flags burned. Speaking Hitler's name feels dangerous, shameful. And yet silence lingers. At Nuremberg, the world demands answers. Nazi leaders sit behind glass, listening as prosecutors reveal the full scale of the regime's crimes. Film reels roll. Corpses fill the screen. The courtroom goes quiet. This is not revenge. This is documentation. For the first time, modern history confronts genocide in full view. Orders, signatures, timetables. The defense of "I was just following orders" collapses under the weight of evidence. Germany is forced to look at itself. Denazification begins, not perfectly, not completely, but deliberately. Teachers are retrained, textbooks rewritten. Children are taught what their parents were never allowed to hear. Responsibility replaces myth, memory replaces denial. But rebuilding is slow. The nation is split in two, East and West, each shaped by opposing ideologies born from the same catastrophe. The Cold War rises from the ashes of the Second World War, and Germany becomes its frontline. Yet something fragile begins to grow. A new generation asks questions. How did fear become loyalty? How did hate become law? How did silence become consent? The answers are uncomfortable. They always are. Because Hitler did not seize Germany in a single moment. He was enabled, step, by desperation, propaganda, and the belief that surrendering freedom could bring security. Germany fell not when bombs dropped, but when truth stopped mattering. And that is why this story endures. Not as a warning about one man, but about how easily a society can be led if it forgets to question power, protect truth, and defend humanity. History does not repeat itself exactly, but it watches, and it waits. June 1945, Berlin and beyond. The rubble smolders under a weak summer sun. The city is quiet now, but not peaceful. Broken buildings stand like tombstones. Smoke drifts from makeshift fires where families burn what little remains. You can almost smell despair, mingled with ash and rain-soaked rubble. The streets are haunted not by soldiers, but by memory. Germany's people wander through the ruins of what they once believed was destiny. Children ask questions adults cannot answer. Why did this happen? Echoes through basements, over bridges, across bombed-out squares. Survivors clutch photographs of loved ones, holding onto fragments of a world that no longer exists. Across the country, towns and cities, Hamburg, Dresden, Cologne, lay flattened. Civilians who survived air raids now face hunger, disease, and homelessness. Millions are displaced. Millions are silent. The machinery of war has consumed all it touched. In the midst of this, the Allied powers begin the painstaking process of denazification. Offices are purged. Officials are tried. Teachers, judges, and civil servants are evaluated. Some claim ignorance. Others were complicit. Some flee, disappearing into South America, while others face justice. At the Nuremberg trials, the scale of atrocities becomes undeniable. Documentation, photographs, films, meticulous records of mass murder, reveals a systematic effort to erase entire communities. Survivors testify, voices trembling. Judges deliberate, weighing the unimaginable. Every verdict is a reminder that law, truth, and morality are fragile, and that silence is complicity. Yet the legacy is not only legal. It is moral, cultural, and psychological. Generations must now carry the weight of what occurred. Survivors rebuild not just homes, but identity. Germany itself is divided, East under Soviet control, West under Western allies, each side attempting to reshape the narrative of guilt and responsibility. Beyond Germany, the world watches. Hitler's rise and fall are studied, dissected, and debated. How could a nation, educated and cultured, follow a single man into catastrophe? How could fear, propaganda, and blind loyalty dismantle freedom from within? The answer lies in the shadows, the small choices that accumulate into a collapse. In the moments when citizens chose obedience over questioning, comfort over courage, ignorance over truth. Those shadows linger long after guns are silent and cities rebuilt. And for anyone watching history today, the message is clear. Vigilance is eternal. Democracy can be dismantled in slow steps, fear can be weaponized, and ordinary people can become actors in extraordinary evil. Because Germany's fall was not merely a chapter in a history book. It is a warning written in ash, blood, and memory. 1946, Germany occupied zones. The first post-war winter is bitter. Coal is scarce. Families huddle in basements and makeshift shelters, heating their homes with whatever wood remains. The streets are quiet, yet every corner whispers of the recent horrors. You can almost hear the echoes of sirens, the shouts of soldiers, the cries of the innocent. It all lingers in memory. Children who survived the war grow up surrounded by rubble and silence. Schools reopen, but the lessons are heavy. Teachers, themselves scarred by years of propaganda, struggle to convey truth while acknowledging their own complicity or helplessness. The stories of relatives lost in bombings, forced labor, or camps become both cautionary tales and burdens too heavy to bear. Across the country, displaced persons, Jews, Poles, Romani, political prisoners, wander back to towns that no longer feel like home. Survivors face the challenge of rebuilding lives while confronting neighbors who may have betrayed them or watched silently. Trust is fragile, and every street corner carries the shadow of suspicion and fear. Meanwhile, the Allied forces attempt reconstruction. Western zones focus on democratization, education, and economic recovery. In the East, the Soviet regime imposes strict control, rewriting narratives and punishing anyone deemed a threat to their version of history. Germany, already divided physically, is also divided ideologically. And yet, even amid devastation, life stirs. Factories hum again. Markets reopen. Families plant gardens among ruins. Music, laughter, and human connection slowly return, though tempered by memory. Communities rebuild with resilience, carrying forward the lessons of obedience, propaganda, and complicity as warnings for future generations. Globally, the world watches Germany's transformation. Scholars, politicians, and ordinary citizens analyze the collapse, attempting to understand how a modern, educated society followed a man into unprecedented destruction. It becomes clear, Hitler's rise was not solely the work of a single tyrant. It was a product of fear, economic hardship, propaganda, and the gradual surrender of moral courage. This realization extends beyond history books. It becomes a warning, an eternal echo to humanity. Vigilance against authoritarianism, propaganda, and unchecked power is not optional. Freedom can be dismantled in increments, and evil can flourish when ordinary people choose silence over action. Germany fell, Hitler died, cities burned, millions perished, yet the shadows linger, shaping lessons, shaping culture, shaping consciousness for generations yet to come.